There's this quiet assumption many of us grow up with, that intelligence leads to wealth. Study hard, get good grades, make smart decisions, and success will follow. But if that were really true, why do so many highly educated people struggle financially while social media influencers, high school dropouts, and reality TV stars rack up millions? The truth is, intelligence doesn't always translate to income. In fact, sometimes it works against you. Let's break that down. Research shows that the average college GPA of millionaires in the US is just 2.9 out of 4.0, barely a B average. That's not failing, but it's far from exceptional. And there's more. Studies also reveal that people who earn the most don't necessarily have the highest IQs. Some even scored lower than average in intelligence tests. This isn't about bashing intelligence. The problem is how many intelligent people approach risk, failure, and opportunity. Here's where the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in. It's a psychological bias that causes people with low knowledge or skill in a certain area to overestimate their competence. Sounds bad on paper, right? But in practice, it often leads people to start things, to just take action, because they don't realize how hard or complex something really is. And in the real world, action beats theory. Someone who barely understands how business works might still believe they can launch a startup. And because they believe it, they try. They take the first step. They learn by doing. Meanwhile, a smarter person gets stuck in analysis paralysis, researching endlessly, running simulations in their head, worrying about making the perfect move. And as a result, they never actually start. This doesn't mean you need to act recklessly, but it does mean that waiting until you know everything is often a clever excuse for never doing anything. The smarter someone is, the more they tend to overthink and hesitate. But hesitation doesn't lead to progress. This isn't about intellect, it's about action. Now let's talk about risk and how smart people misunderstand it. We're taught that smart people make better decisions. But when it comes to money, career moves, and entrepreneurship, being too smart can actually become a liability. Here's why. Intelligent people are often taught to avoid failure. They're used to solving problems in controlled environments, schools, tests, predictable jobs. But real life and business are unpredictable. No textbook prepares you for starting a company or launching a product no one's ever heard of. Research shows people with higher cognitive ability are more willing to take risks in theory, in a lab setting, but far less likely to do so when real money is on the line. It happens because real-life risk isn't abstract. It feels personal, emotional, embarrassing. There's something to lose. And the smarter you are, the more vividly your brain imagines every possible way it could go wrong. Now contrast that with someone who doesn't overthink. They just act, they try, they fail, they adjust, and eventually, they win. I've seen it in real life. A friend of mine worked in finance, surrounded by brilliant people, and almost every week he'd talk about his business ideas, how much he hated his job, how he dreamed of starting something of his own. But months would pass. Nothing changed. Same job, same complaints, same excuses. Not because he lacked intelligence, but because he overestimated the danger of leaving a safe job and underestimated the cost of staying stuck. And here's the irony. Staying in a job you hate may be riskier in the long run than trying something new. Stagnation is a form of slow failure. Back when we were hunter-gatherers, being cautious kept you alive. Hearing a noise in the bushes and deciding not to investigate meant you probably didn't get eaten. But today, the danger isn't a lion in the bushes. It's regret, stagnation, a life spent in quiet frustration. So the key isn't to become reckless. It's to stop treating calculated risks like they're deadly threats. Because most of the time, the real danger is not doing anything at all. A lot of smart people are secretly terrified of looking dumb. It starts early. Maybe you were always praised for being the smart kid in class. You got straight A's. Teachers loved you. Your parents bragged about you. That label becomes your identity, and it's comforting, until it isn't. Because now, any situation where you might fail feels like a threat. Not just to your ego, but to who you believe you are. If you fail, you're not just wrong. You're no longer the smart one. That fear is paralyzing. Studies show that kids who are praised for being smart are more likely to avoid tough challenges, afraid that failure would prove them not smart. And that habit sticks around in adulthood. On the flip side, people who weren't seen as exceptional growing up often take more chances. They have less to prove and less to lose. If they fail, no big deal. If they win, it's all upside. This gives them an edge. They act more freely. They build confidence through effort, not image. It's the same in fitness. Lifting a 1-pound weight over and over won't build muscle. You grow by pushing yourself, by lifting something heavy. In the same way, you grow financially by doing the uncomfortable things, the things that make you feel uncertain, unprepared, even a little foolish. The people who win big aren't the ones who avoided looking stupid. They succeeded because they were willing to. So if you're afraid to launch that project, post that video, or pitch that client because it might not be perfect, you're probably letting your pride cost you more than any failure ever could. Let's paint a picture. Two people stand at the base of a mountain. One is highly analytical, methodical, maybe even brilliant. The other, not so much. Let's call him the B-plus guy. The first person pulls out maps, checks the forecast, calculates elevation, studies the terrain, doing everything except actually climbing. Meanwhile, the B-plus guy just starts going. Wrong shoes? Probably. Wrong path? Maybe. But he moves. He climbs. He slips. He learns. By the time the smart one finishes his prep, the B-plus guy is halfway up the mountain, scraped knees and all, but with real progress under his belt. That's how success works in real life. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they wait too long trying to do everything perfectly. They chase an A-plus result and never settle for less, which sounds admirable, until you realize they never actually ship anything. The trick is to aim for B-plus work, consistently. Good enough to ship, good enough to learn from, good enough to improve upon later. Because real progress is messy. It comes from stacking small, imperfect actions that compound over time. This isn't about lowering your standards. It's about understanding that doing something is infinitely better than waiting to do everything right. Want a few resources to help with this shift? 3 great books for that. The Practice by Seth Godin is a guide to showing up and doing the work consistently. Show Your Work by Austin Kleon is great if you struggle with sharing your process or feel afraid to be seen as unfinished. Getting Things Done by David Allen is a classic for overcoming overwhelm and actually executing ideas. But remember, books help, but only action compounds. The difference between the people at the top and everyone else usually isn't intelligence, it's momentum. So what if you're not a genius? What should you focus on? Find and use your comparative advantage. Not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. But everyone has something they can do better than most people. Maybe it's storytelling, fixing things, understanding people. The key is to double down on that edge. A plumber who's reliable, skilled, and respected can out-earn a burned-out corporate lawyer. A freelance editor who delivers consistent quality and builds strong relationships can surpass the income of a stressed-out banker and actually enjoy their life. Not sure what your edge is? Try tools like Clifton Strengths or VIA Character Strengths to get clarity. They help you see how your brain naturally operates and how to align your work with those strengths. When you work in your zone of genius, you compound faster. You build skill, credibility, and unlock better opportunities. Trying to fit a mold you're not built for just slows you down. Once you know your lane, it's time to make a decision. Carry the heavier weight now, or later. Because no matter what path you choose, staying in a job you hate or pursuing something uncertain, there will be discomfort. Let's say you hate your job. If you stay, the pain is familiar. Boredom, burnout, unfulfillment. If you leave, the pain is different. Uncertainty, fear of failure, judgment from others. Either way, there's pain. But here's the question. Which pain hurts more in the long run? Ask yourself, in 10 years, which regret will sting more, failing or never trying? For me, the answer was clear. Staying stuck felt like slow decay. Trying, even if I failed, felt like growth. And the worst-case scenario isn't that bad. You fail. You can start again. You pivot. You take what you learned and apply it somewhere new. What's unbearable is staying exactly where you are, knowing you could have done more. So, if there's a voice in you, even a small one, whispering that you're meant for more, Don't ignore it. You don't have to be the smartest. You just need to move.